Hello, I'm here with two of my friends, Sean O'Brien, CEO of O'Brien Architects, and Greg Gordon, president of Gordon Highlander. We were having a conversation the other day and realized something that was kind of interesting, a connection that you guys had that maybe we didn't put together before. It's that crazy that you guys were actually twins, born at the same hospital, separated at, okay, it's not that great of a connection. But we did realize you guys have a unique relationship with your fathers and that both of them were in the same industry that you guys are in, and just kind of unique things that you've learned from them, and thought it might be great to have a conversation just about some of the things that you've learned from your fathers and being a second generation in that industry. So maybe start off by telling us a little bit about who your dad is and what he did.
Yeah, I can start off. So my father is Jack O'Brien. He's a really great guy. He's been in business for about 45 to 50 years. We kind of lose track here and there. But he retired about 5 years ago. And that's when we started the transition for me to take over the company. And he's just a very honest, fun-loving, hardworking guy. So I'm happy to be here and talk about him today.
Yeah, me too. The difference between Sean and I, Sean got to succeed his father's business. My dad was a developer in the commercial real estate business, and I wasn't smart enough to get on the development side. I ended up contracting side of the business. But nonetheless, my dad was a force in the marketplace that went before me. And I am the beneficiary of having an awesome father too. And I am excited to have this conversation with you, Sean.
Did you guys know did you guys grow up kind of thinking you would follow in your father's footsteps, or did y'all have other plans for a while?
I honestly didn't really think I would, just because I see how hard he worked, and, I knew how many hours he put in, and I had spent so much time at his office making darts out of office supplies and playing Minecraft after school that I said, I don't know if I can do this. But at home, he would play guitar and he would do all these really neat, interesting things. And there had always been a level of inspiration that he had provided me. And it wasn't until I tried different things, like, I went to business school, I did acting for a while, that I realized that, what he does with the art and architecture and design is something that I really want to be part of. So I was able to come on about 11 years ago and spend some serious time with him. And I realized that this is my passion, this is my calling. And I thank him for that.
That's awesome. What about you, Greg? Do you have an acting background?
Yes, that is the other thing that we have in common. I actually have been in a couple movies, and early on when I was lost and trying to find my way, I thought that I wanted to be a drummer. And so I did that for a little while, and then I wanted to work in movies, and I did that for a little while. And then I wanted to do metal sculpture. And Sean, I don't know if you remember this or not, but my dad is also an architect.
I didn't know that, yeah.
And so when I was a kid, my dad was working for his father, and they were doing design and build work, which is what Gordon Highlander does today. We're a contractor that does design build work. And my dad realized that they needed a licensed architect. And so he volunteered himself and went back to school after I was born. So age 4 to 8, my dad was at UMBC getting his architecture degree. And back then, that was the late 70s. As a kid, I would help kind of draw on the lines on my dad's schoolwork. So I was born into the business, is what I tell people. I was around plans and construction my whole life. And it wasn't until I appeared to be at the end of my rope of experimenting all the different things that I was trying at the time that my dad said, hey, what about being a general contractor? You got the gift of gab. You really like working with your hands. This is a great profession. And I was a little reluctant at first, but I was also just tired enough that I was ready to quit changing my mind. And so, to answer your question, Dan, no, I didn't think I was going to be in the same line of business as my dad.
Yeah, architecture is truly a calling, and it's funny because the grass is always greener. Because I look at contractors and I'm like, those guys have it awesome, and I know how tough it is after all these years that I've been exposed to that. So, being an architect is not for the faint of heart, and you do it because you love it.
So growing up, I think it's interesting you guys grow up around it. And so obviously you're learning stuff just by proxy because you're seeing your dad's lead great organizations or great projects, whatever it might be. And so there had to be stuff that they were teaching you and imparting to you, one, just by being around it, things you would observe by their behavior. And chances are there are probably some things that you can remember that they would say that they wanted to pass on to you guys. And so as you think back and maybe even now as you've risen up and you guys are both great leaders in and of yourself, what are some of the things that you can think of that your dad's imparted to you that were maybe foundational or shaping in the way that you lead today?
I think Gordo has the better answer here as far as sayings, because his dad sounded like a philosopher. So I'll let you start off with this. Okay.
But I know what you're going to say too. And I think your story is more beautiful than mine. It's funny. I actually petitioned my dad and said, dude, if you could just jot down a handful of things that you wanted me to know. And he shared some really wonderful things. They were really, I think, more about me as a person. And so I have both. I have a dad that's building into me, and then also a leader in the marketplace that knew a lot about business. So a lot of advice that came about business that I think people oftentimes learn the hard way. I will tell you, one of my favorite sayings is my dad would always talk about, you can't lead people. Excuse me. Did I say that wrong? Dad, oh my gosh, I messed it up again. Oh, I got nervous. You can't manage people. You can only lead people. You can manage processes. You can't manage people. And so early on, just a strong emphasis on how important leadership was, and just an illustration about how difficult it is and where it's misplaced.
Craig, as you think about that lesson that he imparted to you, and at the time of us recording this, we're kind of on about 3 months into the pandemic. And so how does that lesson shape the way you think about leading your team through this difficult season in the midst of market instability amongst a bunch of different things? How does that play out as a leader?
Yeah, the other thing is, I'm sure Sean could say the same thing. My dad's, he's the top phone a friend when it comes to anything business wise. And so he's also lived through downturns and other traumatic professional experiences. And so, I oftentimes try to gauge his fear meter. And, this one I think has been really, I think still is confusing for a lot of people. There's just a lot of polarity in people's views on coronavirus. But, my dad placed a high emphasis on making sure that we understood the solvency of the business, that we knew what our runway looked like and how much was required to keep the business going. Talked a lot about being lean and being conservative in case it got really bad, and just having enough dry powder to be able to ride through a long, painful period in the business. And yeah, I know Sean's saying from his father was no debt, no debt, no debt. And similar messaging from my dad too.
Yeah, the statement of no debt. So there's a couple of points to this conversation that I really like. I'd say, just tagging off what you're saying right away is no debt, no debt. And he drove that into me, like, you couldn't drive anything else into someone. And we had some interesting experiences here with the banks and lending and all that stuff. And it made me realize that, that's a really solid way to go. Sometimes it'll bite you on the butt when the PPP stuff came out, but ultimately we were very conservative, and, we just paid attention to what we consider to be our family, and that's the people who work at our office. So one of the things I really respect my dad for is, over the years, he took care of his people like he took care of his own family. And his own family was kind of a reflection of the firm, because he had multiple marriages and we had stepchildren, and altogether there were 7 of us. So he was the nucleus of the family, and he had this great spirit and presence about him that caused us all just to really unite. And you would think it could make a real, storm of a situation, but we all love each other and we talk to each other almost every day. So I think one last thing is, how would my dad handle this situation? It's kind of funny. Whenever I get into a tough situation, I have this, because of my acting past, I do what's called method acting. And I method act as my dad. I mean, this is kind of tongue in cheek, but in a sense, I really do put myself, I envision him, and I'm kind of like, how would he react in this situation? And, when the whole COVID thing broke out and jobs were being put on hold a little bit, I said, I don't care. Things are going to be tough, but my family and my people, that's what I'm here to take care of. And, I believe that's exactly what my dad would have done too.
Okay. I can't not ask, do you have an impersonation of your dad that you do, or?
Oh, here we go. You.
Yes. Whenever he gets angry, he turns his Jersey accent on, but he's a cool guy.
That's so cool. I love business succession stories, and I'm just so proud of you, Sean. I love O'Brien Architects, and we had kind of hit on this before the call. I think there's something about the way your dad set you up to succeed him that's just a wonderful picture. I think you're able to thrive because of that environment that he set up for you and all your siblings. Really, it's just so cool, man. It touches my heart.
Thanks. I'm humbled by that. And likewise, I mean, reflecting on it, you really don't hear many people talk about succession and what it all means. People just assume it's all fed on a spoon, where I believe you actually said that only 10%, there's a very small percentage of businesses of our scale that have been transitioned successfully. And I mean, watching, you started your own, and you had a great legacy as a foundation. So I applaud you for that. And I know that that's never easy, and you're very personable and humble and respectful. So we appreciate your relationship.
That's just an interesting dynamic that you hit on, is you come from the industry, so you have a knowledge base or an understanding of some things, and yet the success rate is not what you would think it would be if you have that background. And so what does help? What do you guys do? What do you guys think you've done in your particular companies that have helped you? I know Sean's succession, Greg, you started yours, but still second generation in the industry. What's helped you and your company? What's the mindset that you would pass on to those who didn't have a father in the industry to pass some stuff on, and things that maybe you had to overcome because you had the curse of knowledge? You knew some stuff and came from that situation.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can tell you that I think this is a part of the legacy that I was born into. And I had mentioned this on the call the prep call too, but I really believe that what's alive at Gordon Highlander is a culture and an environment where people believe in and try to bring out the best in other people. It's actually our mission statement. And so that is a family legacy. It's not something that I invented on my own. It was something that I was born into. And I really think that helps you see that it's less about you and it's more about others. And man, it's awesome to be the founder of Gordon Highlander. I love all the people that work there. I think of them like family too, Sean. I think that's probably what makes us attractive to each other and in the marketplace. That it's just more about the people and the relationships and less about the resume and the project.
Tagging on to that, I think that, servant leadership is now this big thing. And I believe my dad was a servant leader before it was the cool thing to do. He empowered people. He never micromanaged. He always trusted in what his people were doing. And because of that, some of the same employees and higher up people that he trusted learn to trust me because they see some of the same, that my dad and I hold both the same values. So we have our president, David Culbertson, who's been a really excellent mentor for me. He's around and, he's been around 30 plus years, as have other people in the firm. So
that's awesome. And so obviously your father's imparted a lot to you, but if you had something that you wanted to share, just a shout out to your fathers or a thank you, or, what would you want to say to them for what they've passed on and what they've invested in you that's now being multiplied into your companies and your leadership and the position of influence that you're in?
So my dad instilled a couple really amazing things. And I think the first and foremost is kind of how to survive and how to provide for people. The legacy he set up definitely gave me the opportunity to mature into the leader that I've become. And, he, above everything, values love and inclusiveness and wisdom. And I can't thank him enough for that. So, Dad, I love you. Thank you.
Awesome.
There's an over under at every company lunch at Gordon Highlander on how many minutes it'll take before I cry. And so, but I got this genetic disorder from my dad. It's kind of funny. It's just been modeled for me. It's like every time I try to speak from the heart, it comes out of my eyes. But you guys, I will tell you on a lighthearted note, my dad is the funniest guy I've ever met. I have laughed more with my dad than any human being. It's so cool. Look, the tears, here they come. How long are we into this? 10 minutes?
And for the record, Greg, I think you teared up at about minute 2. There was something earlier, so
yeah.
I don't think we made it. I don't think we made it to 12 minutes. So I think you got it at point 2.
I can't. Yeah, I almost teared up earlier too. So, and that never happens.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Greg, you have that impact on people.
Thank you. I think that's part of the legacy I was born into. It's hard to really talk about it intelligently. It's just something that and I really appreciate you guys.
Well, thank you guys for
Likewise.
Jumping on and having the conversation and sharing some of the things that you've learned from your fathers and that now are alive and well in your leadership and in you and in the companies that you lead. So we appreciate that. What a great perspective. Thank you guys for taking the time to share. I hope others enjoyed hearing that as well. And just thank you guys.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.